Go for it.
Just go into there and go in.
Go to a bigger room on there.
We didn't have any. We didn't want to have any.
Yeah, push the glass out.
Yeah, we are technically live. So.
How's everybody doing tonight? Everybody in a great mood? I'm so used to saying welcome to AIU, I don't think I can get away with that today. So welcome to the Revit Group of Raleigh. Everybody say hi. My name is David Butts. I'm the Engineering Technology Manager for Gannett Fleming. Been here about 9 years. The 13 years before that, I was with an Autodesk reseller. And I'm part of the Autodesk Expert Elite program. So just a little history here. Gannett Fleming is a 102-year-old company. We were started by one of the founding members of the National Geographic Society. And his father, who started the company, his father is actually Gannett Peak in Wyoming, which is the second tallest peak in North America, was named after him. So he's the father of the cartographic map. So we do a little bit of everything here: civil, environmental, electrical, construction management, facilities, name all of it. So we're really glad everybody can make it down here today and kind of join us. I want to introduce Mike Doherty over here. He's my favorite Yankee. We've hijacked him from Long Island to come down here and do water and wastewater design for us. And he's going to be doing our presentation tonight from the water business line about doing a water treatment plant in BIM 360. You're going to get to see an example of a project that we did down in Clayton. So got some cool stuff going on there for you. Here's our agenda for tonight. For the safety note, if anybody needs it. I don't really know how to tell you this, but if you got to get out of here, there's stairs on both ends of the building, so follow the dash lines and go out. But we also don't have any life vests that drop from the ceiling, so I guess we're all right. Oxygen mask, none of that. So. Even though it's nice and good. Here's what we're doing tonight. We're going to start off with a little bit of introductions here. I'm going to get everybody else to introduce themselves in a second. We're going to start with Mike here in just a couple of minutes, talking about the Novo Nordisk water treatment plant. And then at 6:30, we're going to have my buddies from JDAVIS Design, Shawn, Clemons, and Ben Scott. You guys are going to jump up here and talk about actually working on this building, which, like I said, we just moved into a few months ago here. Really nice loft space. And after we get done, we're going to have some open discussion. So if anybody has any questions, just pop up anytime and just ask us. We'll be more than happy to get started. All right. So I'm going to kick it right off real quick here tonight, and we'll get started with Mike. I'm going to let Mike introduce himself here a little bit, and then I'm going to be his driver. So, knock it off.
How you doing, everybody? Thanks for coming down.
Can you
as
put the
David
mic on?
said,
Oh, yeah. You gotta put on the mic in here. Put that to your shirt. This is called microphoning 101. Can you handle that? Okay, now put that on your pocket and don't trip over the cord. Yeah, make sure it's turned on. You hit the button on the left here. There you go. Whoops. Start over again. This is what happens when you put engineers.
oh, Jesus.
What happens when you put engineers in tech?
Okay, better? All right. Okay, so, like David said, I'm originally from New York. Come down from Long Island about 2 years ago in the Raleigh area. We love it down here. I am a BIM specialist and a designer for the water business line at Gannett Fleming. I've been with Gannett Fleming 21 years. I've been in the wastewater field for about 30. Like I said, well, like David said, the project that we're going to talk about tonight is a treatment plant that we did for Novo Nordisk over in Clayton. This was a wastewater pretreatment facility. I don't know if anybody here is familiar with wastewater at all. But a wastewater pretreatment facility basically treats typically industrial wastewater from a plant that has a process that maybe is out of spec for discharge into a publicly owned treatment plant. So the wastewater gets pretreated and then discharged to the publicly owned treatment plant after it's cleaned up a little bit. The project we did down here in Clayton was an EPC project. I don't know if you're all aware of or familiar with the term, but it's an engineering, procurement, and construction project. So Gannett Fleming did the engineering, we did the procurement, and we did the construction management on the project. The facility was done for Novo Nordisk to support a new campus that they were building out there to manufacture a new drug that they were doing down here in the Triangle that was previously manufactured in Europe, and they were bringing it over here to the United States and going to do production here. The stakeholders on the project were Novo Nordisk and the town of Clayton.
So if you spin it around, it's just like real juddery?
Well, this is a little slow, but that's to be expected because it's like a bunch of models poured on top of each other. It's just that that screen can't keep up.
Yeah. Yeah, something,
I mean, it's like
something
still
weird's going
trying to adjust.
I don't know. It's blue.
Says so. It says CHB12.
Yep, that looks good, and that looks good. Done. The refresh on the screen's a little juddery. I don't know. Okay. Okay. Yeah, sort of like every once in a while, it sort of like pixelates a little bit. But right, right. Give some time. Okay. So, if y'all are good, we can go ahead and get started. So again, I'm Shawn Clemons. I'm the architect with JDAVIS.
And I'm Ben Scott. I'm architect at JDAVIS.
We had a disagreement earlier about who had the harder job on this project, but big picture, basically, Ben acted as project architect, and I was project manager on the day-to-day. So I don't know kind of what everybody else's backgrounds are here, but just to kind of give you guys a sense of how a project like this goes on. These buildings like this and several of the others that are under construction downtown right now, they're basically they're private development projects, and generally speaking, the way these things work, a lot of times we have developer clients and they come to us pretty much all the time, and they're like, "Hey, we got this thing. Might want to put some. What can we put on this piece of property? What can we fit here? What can this be?" And then depending on what the answer is, then it's like, "Okay, well, can you put something together for us? Because now we have to go off and sell it. So they've got to go find, a bank that'll lend them money. They've got to go find tenants. So a lot of times we'll do kind of a preliminary schematic design phase or concept design phase, put together a package for them, and then they go off and come back sometimes a month, sometimes 6 months later, and okay, we're ready to go, or actually we're going to try something else or whatever. So anyway, big picture, this project kind of went through a little phase like that, and then the client, Heritage Properties, is a developer actually out of Baltimore. They've got a local guy here now named Ryan Blair, and Ryan is from this area. He worked up in Baltimore and decided he wanted to move back to Raleigh, so he came down here and started doing development projects for Heritage. Ryan came to us and said, okay, we're at that site on Glenwood Avenue. We're going to go ahead and build that thing. The project consisted of this building, the parking deck across the street, and then the hotel that fronts the parking deck. That was technically a separate project, but something sort of always envisioned from the beginning. They had to basically, the hotel's a separate client, so they went off and found a hotel partner that wanted to build a hotel and did that piece of it. So from the time they came to us and said, okay, we're ready to go, let's start design development, that was in the beginning of April 2016, and by about Thanksgiving, we were in for permit, so 7 months, and then I think construction started after the first year. The building, again, getting back to the development question, the important thing with those guys is, it's number one, speed to market, and what can we build by right? So, what can we fit on that footprint? Because if you could think about, if they want to go in and rezone something, it takes forever. Here in Raleigh, it's generally about a year, which is actually a lot faster than a lot of other places. But still, time kills deals, and if they've got to go and persuade the city council and the folks in the neighborhood about the project, and it just adds complication, adds time. So this building is pretty much the biggest thing can fit on this site. It is within a few inches of the maximum height. It is built up to the lot lines on pretty much all the sides. We had to get an encroachment from the city for the light fixtures, I think over on Hillsborough Street, because the light fixtures, the sconces on the building hung over the build-to line. And, oh yeah, and the windows. Yeah. The windows on the west side, the opposite side of the building, that window pattern is heavily dictated by how far away from the property line we are, because we can only have a certain percentage of allowable openings, and so we had to design the, so it was like less than 20% here, 25% there, and yeah.
Yeah, we've also got the step backs from the UDO.
Oh, yeah. So then a few years ago, Raleigh moved to a form-based zoning code, which again specifies the heights and setbacks and all those kinds of things. And one of the things they added at that time were step backs, and so they say that between the third story and the 8th story, each street-facing elevation has to have a step back to get light and air and stuff down to the street. We were able to go in and get a variance for the side of the building facing Glenwood Avenue. So we don't have a step back there, but we had that was part of the reason why we had these step backs here on Hillsborough, and then the one up on the 8th floor facing over there on Hargett. Or no, that's not Hargett. That's Morgan? Morgan. Yeah. So let's see. So JDAVIS was we were the architect, landscape architect, and interior designer. Crenshaw Consulting Engineers did plumbing, mechanical, electrical, and fire alarm. And Fleur Reed was the structural engineer. The whole project, I think we might start in Revit 14 or 15, but the project was done primarily in 16. It's actually still in 16 now because it never got upgraded. By the time it was under construction, I think we just carried on with it. But I think shell buildings are, there's not a lot to them necessarily in terms of, you think like collision detection, that kind of stuff. When we design the building, we're designing the skin, we're designing the core. We designed, there's a sort of club lounge area up here on the 10th floor with the patio and everything. First floor lobby, all sort of core areas. But we don't have a huge amount of clash detection to worry about. Where it did get complicated were, again, because of the height limitation, because of kind of trying to squish the whole building in, we got into issues here, like where the patios are, where this patio is up on 10, where the patio is back here on 8. But, we've got to drop the structure down to be able to allow for drainage and the patio pavers and everything else is out there on the deck. And then we've got to allow for the roof drains and everything coming out of the bottom and getting back to a column or something to run down the face of the, run down through the building and down the stormwater. And so those actually got really tight. In terms of a shell building, that was one of the biggest issues we dealt with. We also have a transformer vault in the building. It's over there on the opposite corner from us. It's a 3-hour rated transformer enclosure. And we had a sand filter.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, don't put sand filter in your building if you can help it.
Sand filter on the wastewater? On the roof?
Stormwater.
Stormwater.
Yeah, so all the stormwater goes down into the loading dock, and 40% of it, I think, somewhere around there, had to go through the sand filter. And so because we built to the limits of the site, there was nowhere else to put it. And so yeah, it's in the loading dock. And it was from our perspective, it was a bit of a coordination issue, because those things in our world, a lot of times they just end up out in the site somewhere.
Yeah.
And it's a precast box, and they just, we don't have to do a whole lot with it. The GC buys it, they put it in a hole in the ground, and they cover it up, and nobody ever, somebody has to come do maintenance on it. But actually, this building and the parking deck both have sand filters in the building, because we had nowhere else to put them. So it was a little bit of a different thing for us. But what else?
Yeah. The height limit also created some. Is the reason the second floor is only a half floor plate? Was because of the height limit?
Oh, it actually is. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. The second floor doesn't extend. If you go down and kind of walk around the front of the building here, the side facing Hillsborough Street, those retail spaces, your retail generally wants to be 16, 18-foot ceilings, something like that. You want to be able to have big high space, be able to have plenty of room for mechanical. If you've got a kitchen, where are the ducts going, all that kind of stuff. So we couldn't fit everything in, and so one of the ways we dealt with it was that there's on the second floor there's a little bit of space, office space over on the back corner, but then pretty much everything facing Hillsborough Street, wrapping all the way around this side of the building to the main lobby, is basically double height space. Actually double height space, because there's no second floor there.
That's because
We just
Hillsborough Street is like
couldn't get it in.
4 feet higher than Morgan, and that was enough to make the difference in the height restrictions.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So when, again, we put the building together, everything we had, and you actually maybe flip through some of the 3D view stuff. We had models from each of the major disciplines. We didn't do any kind of 360 real-time sharing or anything like that, but we were. Yeah, this may take a second, but we were sharing on a periodic basis, and then we're using email and instant messenger and stuff like that to share information back and forth, like, oh hey, post a new model, that kind of thing. And then we're just basically using ShareFile to push things back and forth. Even though the project was pretty fast-paced, I think some of the folks on the team preferred to have it be a little bit more incremental like that, because I think one of the problems is we have a bad habit. For example, we'll go in we'll have some problem. Say we go to a meeting with a client, and they're like, oh, hey, we want to do this thing. Well, we may go in there and start tearing the model apart, moving things around and trying something out, and it may not ever go anywhere. And we've had issues where if you're let's say you're the plumbing guy and you're trying to pipe the bathroom, and all of a sudden the bathroom's not there anymore, you don't know what happened. So from our side, it's a little bit at odds with sort of how we use the models. Not say it's good or bad.
They would prefer that the design settle down before we tell them about changes.
And we're like, oh, hey, here's the new model. Here's whatever. So
yeah, if it was constantly live, we would drive them insane.
Yeah, we usually invite them guys to the table until we got things ironed out. It's a little testy when you start.
Yeah, there's sometimes we got some moving parts. From our side, we love having everything in there. I think there's always a sort of visibility graphics question in terms of like what shows up and what you're seeing. But like, for example, we may go in and by default, you've got your other disciplines linked in. We're going to hide all your annotation. We're going to hide structural builds walls, which actually this is a structural model here. You can see anywhere there's brick veneer on the building, they've built walls because they need them for their sections. So we pretty much universally hide their walls, so we don't want to see them. But if you go and look at our wall section probably has a pipe from the plumbing engineer. It probably has the structural beams from the structural model, structural floor slab, the decking, the edge of slab, the Nelson studs. So there's a lot of stuff that we then use basically to populate our work, and so that even though we're doing it sort of incrementally, we're coordinating in real time with the rest of the team, making sure that, oh hey, your slab edge isn't where it's supposed to be or whatever. We can kind of keep everybody moving in the same direction. So.
What's your tool of choice for those fast, like design, look and fit on this site? Is it SketchUp?
Yep.
It depends on who you ask, though.
Well, it's either SketchUp or trace paper.
Right, right. Yeah, and we've done, we got the new thing, Morpholio, the thing on the iPads.
Yeah.
Which is.
That's really cool, but we haven't actually used it.
Yeah, you have
in the wild yet.
Yeah, right. Yeah,
Not in
so
the
it's getting. Anyway, it's one of these things. It depends on who you ask in the firm. Although there are folks who are much more comfortable with Revit, who like massing and doing those kinds of things in Revit. Ben, I think, both came from the SketchUp world, where back when we started doing Revit, the overriding mentality was you didn't want to do that in a Revit model because you're just going to put all kinds of stuff in there, and then the model's going to blow it up, and 6 months from now you're going to be hating the fact that you were doing massing and everything in SketchUp or in Revit. But then there are other folks who are
SketchUp integrates with Google Earth, and you can.
Yeah, it's true too.
Because when they come to us with those properties, they don't have a survey or anything. It's just take it off Google. That's all you got.
That's not a last call, I promise.
You turn the lights on and off from your phone? What's going on over there? Watch this.
That's fancy.
Yeah, I won't say all, but probably the vast majority of our work is private development work. So we have, depending on which discipline you look at, for example, landscape architecture, planning, those guys are doing a lot more municipal work than maybe the office as a whole. But yeah.
So the initial quick exercises that you were talking about, have you guys tried the test.io or something like that?
Yeah.
How does that work?
I haven't used it personally. I know we have it. I know we've been using it. That's the one that's sort of automated.
Generative design.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, we've been messing with it, and there's some folks in the office that use it, but I haven't been exposed to it.
Yeah, I've seen it, but I haven't used it.
Yeah. I sat in on the presentation, I think, when we first looked at it. It's pretty interesting just in terms of being able to throw an idea out there and just kind of see what fits, see how things come together or whatever, and then be able to cycle through some options pretty quickly. But the other thing, the hot new thing now is on the iPad Pros, there's a program called Morpholio, and it's really slick because you can do some kind of 3D stuff with it, but it's really much more like trace paper. So you can go back in Google Earth and zoom in on a site and get the piece of property, and then it basically has like trace paper layers. So you can drop those in. It's got a little scale that you can drag over and scale stuff and then draw parallel lines and all that kind of stuff. And that's handy because you can do it on iPads. So you can kind of do it anywhere.
So it's different than Format, or easier than Format?
I haven't used Format. But okay.
Input and it's plugged into Revit.
Okay.
So whatever you generate there would go into Revit script.
We might have to look at that. Is it run on iPad?
I think it does.
Does it run on Surface?
Yeah.
Ah.
Yeah. It's a cloud-based. Revit runs, no, it runs on Surface because Revit runs on Surface.
Yeah, see, I don't have the iPad, so I can't use Morpholio. But if I get it to run on there,
It's kind of like Autodesk take on SketchUp.
okay.
Just that because it's Autodesk based, that it will then play well with Revit.
That's pretty cool. Let's look at that and see. Yeah. Eric's nodding his head. We must have it. I don't have it. Let's see if we can get it installed on my computer.
What
So-
was something cool that you guys learned about Revit on this project? Was there anything?
I've been doing Revit for a long time.
No. This is probably, we'd done them, I think I had done full BIM projects before this, but this is probably one of the first ones in the office where generally we would have architectural and structural, but this is one of the first where we had plumbing, mechanical, electrical in there as well. And some of those guys, like for example, electrical guys, they'll model kind of as much as they need to, but just for us flip to that electrical model real quick, or even the like plumbing one or something. We had a huge amount of stuff down in the dirt under the building. So let's see if it updates here a little bit, but
It's gonna be a little laggy.
this is just electrical stuff, and it's going to be a little hard to read like this, but the transformers were over here on the side, and there's two big duct banks that come out of the transformers and basically run from where the transformers are over there, run all the way through the building to the main electrical room that's kind of under the kitchen, straight down into the kitchen down there. There's a generator down there on the back side. There's the sand filter. There's a couple of huge storm lines where all the roof drains and everything get collected together. There were 2 or 3 big storm lines that came through the middle of the building. So, we spent a ton of time basically looking at the first 20 feet, above and below grade. And where's that stuff coming through, and where are things going? If people have room, has that worked that foundation? Do we need to drop the pile cap, raise the pile cap, run something through a grade beam, whatever. So that was hugely beneficial.
When did you decide not to build a subway system? Just pull the tunnel system.
Yeah. Yeah, but again, there's a lot of that stuff that's dictated kind of by the building, and it's like if you can figure out how to make this work, you can get the building services, push further back off the street and get, a better retail space. Get more space for a restaurant, or get more leasable space somewhere else. So we're always kind of looking at that and thinking, okay, how can you? Is there anything we can do to kind of push this back and make this bigger? Because, at the end of the day, a lot of those a lot of these developer projects like this, whether they get built or not, it's kind of just a simple math equation. They'll look at they've got land costs, they've got design costs, they've got whatever, they add all that stuff up, construction costs, and then they need a certain yield. And so the property, they're going to get this many dollars per parking space, and this many dollars per square foot, and does the market support it? And if you can figure out how to get a little bit more space in a retail suite, get an extra 1,000 square feet of retail, now all of a sudden we have actual dollars that you can do something else with. So it, trying to figure out how to do those things, and all the time just kind of keeping an eye on the overall project in terms of what the square footages are, what the leasable space is. It actually helps us. It helps the client. The client's very happy when we send them an updated spreadsheet. It's like, oh, the building's actually 500 square feet bigger. Like, oh, that's great news. But it actually helps us because then that 500 square feet actually helps, fund, additional things that we want to do on the building and make the building nicer, make it a better place, and better contribution to the city. So.
You guys do format calculations through Revit, or?
Yeah. 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 There's a
Here's the area plans.
whole series of area plans here somewhere, and they're generally set up to do it kind of automatically if you do like the rentable square footage. it sort of defaults to it, and then you can basically you can go in and draw in all the area lines, and then we'll generally go and give certain things names or identify them in certain ways so that you can break out pieces and parts a little bit easier, because you may want to know, how big is that amenity space next to upstairs, or some folks care about what the corridor square footage is on the floor and others don't. So being able to break those spaces out and be able to say, okay, well, if you have a multi-tenant floor, so this is laid out basically as a multi-tenant floor, and it's saying all this green area here is where the corridor would be, and you can do the math and say, okay, we've got 1,500 square feet worth of multi-tenant corridor on a typical floor. But yeah, then we can just schedule this, and it pumps you out a schedule, and you go through and maybe add a couple things up, but then you take that and plug it into Excel or whatever else to give them the final product. So we're using a little bit of Office and a little bit of BIM, but being able to do this in here, and then this becomes a live document, because then a lot of times, yeah, and things move, walls move, you go in and update stuff, or even particularly once the building is then under construction, leasing is ongoing, and so you get a call and they'll say, oh, well, hey, somebody's going to take half of 5, here's a plan, and you actually go in there and block that out and say, okay, well, here's their actual square footage, here's the core factor on that, and then there's, here's how much space is left on that floor, and be able to keep things live, yeah, in real time like that. It's pretty handy.
How long after the project do you still get called to do that work for the owner?
It depends. It depends. Sometimes we'll carry on for years.
Yeah.
They may, particularly folks we have sort of ongoing relationships with, they'll come back to us and saying, oh, hey, and then a lot of times we're doing that TI work too. We're doing the upfits, and so we're managing that whole thing. But generally speaking, I mean, in general, we're carrying it certainly through construction, just to manage that. And just after that, it really depends on whether their property management company takes it over or where it goes after that. Sorry, go ahead.
Property manager ever request your model?
I've never had a property management company ask for it. I was going to say they wouldn't, but I haven't. JLL might. We're doing one actually with them right now, and they might. The GCs often will.
What was the contracting method on this one? How did that affect collaboration?
Private bid stuff, as a rule, but generally as a rule, is going to be negotiated bid. So you're getting a GC on board, probably during design development, maybe during construction documents. They're assisting with feasibility, construction costs, construction scheduling, all that kind of stuff, and then they're going out and doing all the budget and doing getting bids in the market, pricing, all that kind of stuff. So yeah, Whiting Turner was the GC on this one, and yeah, they were involved. I think near the end of DDs, if I remember correctly. I don't remember exactly, but I think it was near the end of DDs when they came on formally. And they had the model, but I don't remember them doing a whole lot of like Navisworks clash detection stuff. They're doing some.
Yeah, usually with the shell space, they're not.
It's not as, yeah. A lot of, this one really, a lot of the clash detection, the coordination stuff had to do with the skin. It was, and not just because it's shell. I mean, there's a lot of stuff going on, a lot of pieces and parts, and there's a lot of, with the step backs and the way the columns come up through the building, the structure has to step and shift and everything. There are a lot of little places where, you've got a little fin of brick sticking out. Well, where's that lintel going, and where's this stuff coming from, and how's that stuff all get detailed? Where's the waterproofing line, all that kind of, so.
LED lighting on the outside of the building.
Yeah, where all those conduits go. Yeah, because you can't see it from here, but yeah, that whole corner right there lights up. It's got strip lights on the mullion caps. So.
I remember when I saw that going up, I'm like, that's really cool.
Yeah.
Did you guys do the design for WeWork?
No, we didn't do their upfit. We were involved in the same kind of way. We're, early on they were coming and asking questions. WeWork had like a lot of tenants. They have some very specific requirements. They want to know about, oh, we need, this many restrooms per square foot or per person, or we need this many, watts of power, or we need, this, this many tons of cooling per square foot. And so we were involved very early on with them as they were doing their lease negotiations to say, okay, well, they want that. Can we provide it? What additional costs associated with it? That kind of stuff. And then they have their own folks that actually do their upfit once they're all squared away.
What is your process for doing the tenant improvement work? Is it like a separate file? Is it just in the same file, different phases?
Generally a separate file. Sometimes, if nothing else, doing a separate file, it kind of, to y'all's point earlier, it keeps work separated. It keeps things divvied up, but it also allows you to repeat sheet numbers, to copy details, but reuse them. Does lots of things like that. So generally speaking, it's going to be in a separate file. We may have phases in here. A lot of times we'll have a phase for future work, and then it may even be steps. So it's like, oh well, this is going to happen, then something else is going to happen. So tenant 1, and then they punch a hole in the floor, and then future after that, and that way we can link those models in differently. Something of mine's dinging. Sorry about that. But we can link those models in and adjust the phases to control visibility.
When you're working with other consultants, like particularly structural, what's kind of your workflow with the data elements, like levels and grids and things like that? Do both you and say the structural engineer create your own data points, grids and levels, and make sure that they're the same? Or
generally speaking, I've never.
Yeah, we'll usually create grids and levels in schematic design, and then pass it on to them, and they'll duplicate.
They'll
I think they
duplicate.
copy monitor level grid.
Yeah, they may copy monitor ours. We generally don't copy monitor theirs. We found that during design it just becomes sort of a headache. It's like, again, because sometimes stuff's moving around, you don't necessarily care that it's the copy monitor. So it just becomes, rather than depending on the tool to do it for us, it's just like, okay, well, we need to go in at some point and fix those column grids or whatever. So we're doing it manually, but everybody has their own in their model.
Well, I want to tell you I love the building. It's awesome. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, thank you guys.
You guys.
So we're gonna we've got a few more minutes that we can go through this. Anybody else have any more questions for these guys about Revit or anything to do with it? We got people over there breaking our office already. Yeah, you must have been the guy turning the lights on and off. Okay, that's good. Well, anyway, we really appreciate everybody coming out tonight. I'm sure there's some food and everything left out there tonight. Where are we gonna be, 2 months? Are we gonna be back at ratio?
Well, I don't know.
We'll talk
We
about it.
we still have some scheduling things we gotta work out.
Because this is a pretty big group, and the reason why we had to move from ratios, because we're getting real tight in there. So
Well,
I
we
think
can-
this is gonna, like, if we have the same similar size group, then it's gonna be pretty hard at ratio.
Yeah, and we can usually put.
We'd love to have
doubles in
everyone,
here.
obviously, but, yeah.
Yeah, we can put double the number in here that we have tonight, so we just rearrange it, theater style. But yeah, if anybody else has anything else they wanna, bring up, if you have a topic that you wanna cover, let us know. We're more than happy to look at some new topics. We don't have our agenda set for the next month, or 2 months from now. Not yet.
And if you recall, the last time we talked about maybe doing some show and tell.
Yeah, we'd love to see some more show and
Which
tell.
I did before with the user group up in Baltimore. I think it's fun because it gives more people the chance to get up here and talk, but you only have to talk for a few minutes. So if you have any families or like little bits of a project, kind of like on a smaller scale of what they were doing here, just contact us and we'll get that scheduled.
Yeah, absolutely. Just let us know, and we're always looking for more people to come up here because you get tired of listening to me. I know that for sure.
Does it have to be?
Yeah, Jason's already over. I don't want to hear you anymore.
What was the question?
Does it have to be your own work for the show and tell?
No,
Okay.
as long as you have right use permission to do it, because this stuff is taped and recorded. Just make sure you have permission to do it, because otherwise Donnie's gonna call you up, and he's gonna get Mike to come over here with his group from New York, and you don't want to go down that path, right?
Just like this chick like retaining wall claim we're working on, and it's really cool, but it's like a claim and.
Yeah, we want to kind of, well, I will do that little masking thing where you can't see what it is. All right, great. Thank you very much for everybody being here tonight. We're glad you came to see us. Stay tuned for the information about the next user group, and we're out. Thank you very much.